Te peke o hufanga he talamalu e whanua, tapu moe api ko takaparawhau, mo ngati whātua, ko honau kere kere ene. Whakatapu atu ki he iwi ko ngati pāua, me rangi toto, pe moe waite mata. Tapu foki, pe mo te kauarawa maki, me he tawhaki hihifo o tāmaki makaurau, ki waita kere. Whakatapu atu, ki wai o hua, ki funga maunga ki. Te whatapu foki ki he tahine kuini, ngā waihono i te pōpōta tau te whero o Tainui. Pe mo tangata whenua o Aotearoa, ka tā ki whakahoko e whatongia, ko e podcast ai Koko X, ko e poloseki eni ai Inasi Kava Club o Aotearoa. O kuo lau ko hoku koloa mo monu, ki u tari lelei ki mautolu ono kotoa, ki he fua podcast ai Koko X. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to first of all pay my respects to Takaparawhau and our home marae here for Ngati Whātua i Ōrākei, the mana whenua, the people of these lands. I want to pay acknowledgement also to Ngati Pāua, whose harbours we are also nearby, and the great mountain volcano cone of Rangitoto and the great Waitemata Harbour. I want to also mihi and acknowledge Te Kauarawa Maki and all the iwi on that side to the west of the Waitakares, to the wonderful scenic hill of Maunga Kieke to Waiohua, and of course I pay respects to the Māori Queen, ngā wai hono i te pōpōta tau te whero tua waru, e tūranga waiwai, and all tangata whenua. Welcome to Koko X. This is our very first podcast in our series, brought to you by the Inasi Kava Club, 4 Shells, whose premises we are very fortunate to be coming from in terms of our podcast. So tonight we are having our traditional kava here at 4 Shells, and we have here, just want to acknowledge our doa serving our kava. I'll call him Sokai because that's his father's title from Wheremea. And Sokai had a very important role in the ancient court of the Tuitonga, which was to protect the king's kava and the king's food. No one else could touch or eat or even be close to the Tuitonga in the old days, but Sokai. And his old name is Hoakai. So it's the partner of the king when he feeds or when he's taking sustenance. So I just want to acknowledge Eric and his role as our doa to protect our kava for tonight. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a little bit ad hoc, a little bit organic. The conversations may flow, they may not flow. If they don't flow, my job is to untangle them so that they can flow. Tonight's issue, ladies and gentlemen, is the importance of kava for our Blue Continent Moana region. So all of us are here because we are passionate about kava. Those of you who are joining in online on the Zoom, I'm sure you will agree with me that kava is a central part of all of our cultures in the Pacific. So tonight is talking a little bit about how that is placed given the modern era that we're in, the commercialization of kava. What are the pros and cons? What are the things that we need to be mindful of from both the side of our entrepreneurs who are doing a great job to sell kava, to grow the economies in their local countries, but also from the other side, what are some of the things that we need to be mindful of in terms of kava? Now, as you all know, kava is a word that comes from Tonga. It stems from the ancient origin myth of the kava, ceremonial use of the kava as a sacrament, if you like. And this comes from a tiny island in Tonga called Eweki. And the story revolves around religious rites, sacrifice, and the anecdote around a little rat that nibbled on a plant, and the observers saw that it was dizzy, ran around, a little bit drunk, and then nibbled on another plant, and it seemed to be the antidote, and it was fine. And to cut a long story short, the plant that it became dizzy on was the kava, and the other plant was the sugar cane. I just want to thank and acknowledge Feiloakitau Kaho Tevi from the Kingdom of Tonga. He's there now with the Kava Council of Tonga. Thank you, Fei, for putting time aside to join us from the Kingdom. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and what first sparked your interest in kava.
Kore atu ke u whanga u whātau kutoa pēpē. Ke u hoko atu he refa Hapilitania.
Hello.
Pakilau, and to you all, with all protocols and acknowledgements respected. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much for the time and the space to be discussing this important issue with regards to kava. So to get right into it, my first goal with kava was back in 1996, where I was given the opportunity to do a pilot study on the interests of European pharmaceutical companies interested in kava, and they wanted to set up a market, and so that was the beginnings of my discussion, or of my connection and links to kava. And so that's when I really started to really get interested. Looking at it from the policy perspective, doing a lot of work at the regional level, setting up the kava council at that time with Ratuna Walo from Fiji, and then also looking at like I said, the feasibility studies with all the kava producing countries, and also the kava importers from Germany and Europe and all those places. And so that was the inkling. That was the beginning of my connection to kava.
So Faye, sorry to interrupt. So kava was almost a professional introduction for you in terms of the industry. Is that right?
Yes. It was first and foremost an introduction from the pharmaceutical and the nutri-pharmaceutical side of things.
Right.
And that's how I got to know kava.
Was this during the time kava was banned in Europe?
No, it was before that. It was before that. So this was 96, 97 when there was this boom in the kava industry, and when we were just getting back into this interest in getting kava to the pharmaceutical markets. Right. In Europe, right? And so access to the pharmaceutical markets in Europe have been up and down, because the exports and sometimes the bags of kava were not quite kava. They had some stones in it, and some people had some wood in it, and it just didn't work out well, right? in the 70s and into the 80s. So when we got onto it, it was really the push from the European pharmaceutical markets to get their hands on concentrates, right? Cavalactone concentrates. And at that time, we were not talking extracts. We were talking concentrates.
Okay.
So that was my first foray into kava, and that had to do with the pharmaceutical market and the feasibility study for the European market itself.
So can I ask, Faye, did you frequent the Whaikava, the kava clubs prior to that, or was kava really something you got into later?
Yeah, kava was something that I grew up with. I drank once in a while when I was in the village, but it was not something that I was used to consuming every day. Yeah.
Right.
And there's one good reason is that I grew up in Europe. I grew up in Switzerland, and at that time, in Switzerland you had more beers than you did kava. So
yeah.
So that's how so for my adolescence, I only got to know kava when I came to Fiji, when I really got into come to my village in Fiji. In Tonga, I didn't get to sit down in Tonga because my dad was not always with me. So right. We were so young when we left Tonga, so we didn't have that opportunity.
Great. Fade, my next question to you is, what do you see as the greatest opportunity for kava, both for growers and consumers currently in the region, and why? What are the opportunities do you see?
Thank you, Pakilau. I think that kava itself is one of those plants that we have the opportunity today to really harness the benefits of kava. And to make sure that kava, the benefits of kava reach the growers and the farmers and the grassroots communities in our islands, because kava is grown there, and kava is grown locally. Kava is grown amongst families. Kava is used as almost like a bank where you need money. You uproot a plant and you sell it. The threat that we have nowadays is that when we begin to move into the industrialization of kava, we begin to find that we are creating problems and challenges that should not necessarily be there. And I'm referring directly to the dieback disease, where we were able to control. During those days when we had small plots, family plots, we were able to control the circulation or the presence of the virus. But nowadays, because we are going into monocropping, because we are moving into the industrial, commercial farming, we find ourselves wanting to maximize profits and maximize yields and maximize production, but what we are forsaking it for is the traditional knowledge and the indigenous knowledge of how we plant crops so that we don't make these crops vulnerable to these diseases. Right. So that's one of the big challenges that we are facing now in the Pacific kava growing community, is that our production is threatened by the increased presence of the dieback disease for kava, and we need to do something about it urgently.
That covers my next question already. So what I want to ask you now, Faye, this one's probably a little bit controversial, but what are your views around protecting kava as a brand? In the region, so that, for instance, it can only be called kava if it's grown in our region.
Yes. So the idea here is that what we would like to do is to really protect the name and where it's been produced from. Right. And so when we are saying that we need to have protection, or we need to get kava to be protected, what we're saying is that wherever you grow it in the Pacific, whether it be in your 7 kava producing countries, you're allowed to do anything with it because it's grown in the region.
Right.
But what we don't want to see happen is that kava is then taken out of the region and then grown in other places and then used and also called kava. If you grow it out of the region, call it something else. Call it, I don't know. You figure out a name.
Yeah.
But the name kava itself is something that is a name that we use for our plant. And no, we know that plant from the region. We know what it is. We know what it is not. And so that's the main thing that we are pushing for. If you want to do development and all these things, that's fine. You can develop. Whether you want to go into extracts and other things, do it. What we are saying here is that we need to develop standards for extracts. We need to develop new standards and new ways of understanding how and where kava can go to, and to what level. But also at the same time, we need to make sure that what we are doing in terms of the development and the commercialization of kava, we are not forsaking the traditional and cultural importance of kava for a commercial interest. Right? We need to keep that balance moving forward.
Right.
That's the big challenge that we have in the Pacific.
Okay, thank you, Faye. And I see Peter's been able to join us. We also have Peter Colmar, who is probably one of the largest growers of kava in the world in Vanuatu. So, Peter, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to be interested in kava?
Well, I can't really tell you what brought me to be interested. I first drank kava on the island of Tanna in the 70s with a Catholic father, because the Catholic fathers used to drink kava back then, and I drank it in some villages as well. But I think the very first time was with the Catholic father, and I had an interest. There wasn't very few people drank kava. There weren't any kava bars in Vanuatu. As such, it was mainly not drunk in either of the two major towns, Port Vila and Santo. It is now. We have a lot of, I think we have in Vila 400 what they call nakamaus, which are actually kava bars. Santo has a lesser number, but they still have a lot. Nothing much happened with kava for many years. I used to drink it occasionally. And then suddenly something happened. The German pharmaceutical companies were interested in it. I think that's when interest came in kava. Vincent Lebeau got interested. He said to me something about this kava's a good thing. So we started to do a few things and play around with it, and then that's how I started off in kava.
So how many years have you been in the kava industry, if you like, Peter?
Probably exporting about, I think I was working it out, it's either 28 or 30 years in exporting it. Right. Exporting it and growing it not too much, growing it more now. And right now I'm setting up quite a large processing factory, which will do a completely different product than has ever been seen before, which is more traditional than you guys drink it, as far as I'm concerned. But yes, it will be traditional. Yes.
Nice.
So that's my background, more or less.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. And what do you see as the greatest opportunity for both growers and consumers of kava currently in the region, and why?
Well, the opportunities right now, because of the shortage, it seems that it's super short in Tonga. They're trying to buy off me, in fact, some people from Tonga for their markets overseas. Fiji is very, very, very short, and we are short. So I guess I see the opportunities of people growing kava. The prices have never been so high. I don't know if they're so high when I relate that to inflation, but I think so. I think they're probably the highest they've been for almost ever. So people need to grow more kava because it does appear like in nations like Fiji and probably Tonga, but very much so in Vanuatu, people are drinking too much, not too much kava, but should I say that they're drinking so much kava that has probably created the shortage. Because before, the men used to drink kava. Like I said, we didn't have kava bars, but we do have now. And in the islands, there wasn't all that much. Well, there was in Pentecost and in Tanna, and basically those ones used to drink kava. The other one's more ceremonial. But now females have also started participating in drinking kava on many islands. And so virtually that's doubled the number of kava drinkers, which is, of course, consuming a lot of kava. So I guess the main thing is to grow as much kava as possible, because we are definitely going to face, it's now economically the largest export in Vanuatu, but we will definitely start facing problems with being able to meet export demand simply due to there not being the kava available. So people are starting to grow more because of the higher prices. So the biggest challenge, I think the biggest challenge is to get people to grow more kava and more efficiently. And I've got certain ways where we're starting to grow it a lot more efficiently, faster and better, and organically.
Just going back to that point that Faye talked about in terms of protecting the kava that we grow in the region. And the fact that, there is a risk that kava, say for instance, Brazil might all of a sudden say, we've got some cuttings, we're going to grow kava. That's a huge risk, surely. Huge risk.
Surely.
They could take over the kava market, right?
100%. And so I want to bounce back to Faye, the thing which I've told him on multiple occasions. I said, stop having meetings about GI, which genetic, whatever it is, geological indicators, and just get Tonga and Fiji and Samoa and everywhere else to do a simple law like we have, saying it is prohibited to export planting material of kava, prohibited, and make the fines very, very high, like $100,000. Now, people are going to still try to maybe do it, but we disagree with any wholeheartedly any planting material being exported. But why will the other countries not do a law to do this? This flabbergasts me. All they want to do is have meetings about geological indicators, which are a waste of time at this stage. A total waste of time. No, not okay. No, I haven't finished. Yeah. No, not okay. They have to pass laws, which are a simple thing. It's a simple thing. So pass the laws and stop having meetings, which are a total waste of time.
All right. Point well made. And I think Faye has a right to reply. So, Peter, I'll give it to Faye to reply to that, and then we'll come back to the next question, if that's okay. Faye, what's your response to Peter's comment?
Yeah, no, I acknowledge Peter's point of view. I mean, that's his point of view. Unfortunately, what's happening now is that we are on a journey where many of the countries now are beginning to, like he said, take this matter seriously and begin to move into the development of legislation and legal frameworks to be able to do what Vanuatu has done back in the early 2000s. And so Fiji and Tonga, now, Samoa, we are getting there where we're beginning to pass legislation to do that, to get that legal framework. What we're doing with regards to GIs, that's an interesting discussion that we need to unpack with Peter, because Peter thinks it's a waste of time. We don't think so. We think that in terms of the countries, there is an opportunity for us to protect to protect kava. There is an opportunity for us to protect the region, and to make sure that we are not in a situation where kava then becomes another plant that's exploited by everybody else, and then we don't reap the benefits of it, and that the benefits do not go to our people and to our communities. Right. And this is where you need to have a balanced perspective, and you need to, at the regional level, we need to come together, look at the issue, try and get a regional perspective to it. And this is where maybe we differ from between Peter and I. I see value in the regional process. coming together, getting that decision and getting that political support done.
Sure.
Peter does not agree with that, and I respect that, but it doesn't mean that everybody will stop for Peter.
Okay. So
but wait, I need to reply.
Peter, just for a second here. So just for our audience, some of them don't understand GI. Can you break down your understanding of GI? Or Faye, can you explain what this GI is for us, please?
Yep. So GI is what we call a geographical indicator, and it's basically an opportunity for us to acknowledge that this particular plant or this particular product comes from a particular region.
Right.
And that if you want to use the name or use the product, you need to acknowledge where it comes from.
Right. Okay.
And that's what we call a geographical indicator.
Right.
What we're doing here is to say you can do whatever you want with kava. You can go into the extracts market as long as kava is produced in the Pacific Island countries. Right. That's our issue, right? Okay. If you take kava and grow it somewhere else, then you shouldn't be calling it kava.
That sounds sensible to me, Peter. What's the problem with that?
No, look, it sounds totally sensible, and I'm against the kava being grown in other countries. I'm against what they call kali kava, to be truthful. But it's a joke. What you guys don't realize is that kali kava is a joke. It's sort of it'll never happen. But
what's kali kava? What's
what
kali
Faye says?
Can you explain?
Kali kava is some American thing where they're growing kava in the US, and they're getting like they talk in pounds, and they're getting a quarter of a pound after 2 years. It's a joke. It'll never happen. They're getting attacked by aphids and all the rest of it. But they're doing it, right? They're doing it. They are doing it. And I think partly to sort of throw things in our face. But going back to this other thing, look, Pay's whole thing about GI, they're putting the cart before the horse. You do legislation which will take one act of parliament for all these countries. Very simple, very quick, and then we're protected. Then the next step would be look at GI. But doing the GI and then looking at protecting planting material going out of the Pacific is crazy. Everybody is pushed into doing legislation to do this very simple law to say it is a prohibited to export kava, any kava planting material, and the fine is $100,000 for anybody caught, and be really strict about it. That is the first. You've got to start there, and then you go into the fancy things like GI. Now, let me talk to you about GI, because everybody doesn't know about GI. Now, look, Fiji imports kava from Papua New Guinea. They import kava from Vanuatu. They're now they have permits to import from Solomons. Now, so where's the geological indicator? We've got a kava called Barugu, Malo, for example, and they want to say that this is from this area and da-da-da-da-da. But Fiji, until Fiji stops mixing kava, and what they do is they get our good kava, and they get what I call very highly 2-day kavas from PNG, and they mix them with what they call the stems and the cut piece from Fiji, and everybody knows about this. Yep. And nobody does anything about it, and then calls it Fiji kava. Well, that is wrong. That is also wrong. And why there should be meetings about that long before there's any meetings about GI and prancing around the world about GI. It's
Peter, coming back to something you said around proprietorship, I guess, in terms of kava. Now, this is going to open up a whole new can of worms, and I don't want to labor the point. But do you have any issues with? There was a movement to try and make kava almost like what they did in France with champagne. Is this a different issue altogether? You can only call it champagne if it's grown in Champagne province in France.
Look, those are issues. I know they're issues, but look, I want to tell you one thing, and I think this really needs to be said in this meeting very clearly, is that experts from the United Nations went to Tonga, and Faye is well aware of this, and the experts said you cannot trademark the name kava. You cannot trademark it. I don't know why exactly. I don't know the ins and outs, but they can't trademark it. So in some ways, what they're doing, and they have this information, but they're still pushing ahead, is wasting their time. If you can't trademark something, you can't really do anything. Now, look, I'm in total agreement. We can not allow planting material to be exported out of the Pacific. All kava must be grown in the Pacific. It must be. You know, we cannot allow it to escape. It's economically important for the countries of the Pacific. Very important. It's Vanuatu's largest export. So, you know, we're on the same page with that, 100%. The name kava, we're probably on a similar page there too. You know, that kava is kava, and it may be a Tongan name, but I want to just add this in. It is a Tongan name, I believe.
Hang on,
but
let me
the origin of kava came from
So you
Vanuatu.
admit it's a Tongan name. That's fantastic. Thank you, Peter, for admitting
No.
that.
Look, I don't 100% know, but I believe it is from what I'm told.
It is definitely
That's fine.
Yeah.
But the origin of kava is definitely, it's shown from science that it's from Vanuatu. That is also sort of beside the point, but you know, and I'm quite happy with those sort of things. But where we're not happy is that, you know, we're going ahead and we're putting the cart before the horse. Come on, we've got to get all countries to prohibit the sale of kava planting material. That's most important. That's the first thing to do. That's how you get off the front of the cab off the front. Whatever you call it, the cab off the rank. You know, the front cab off the rank. That's the thing to do at the beginning. Once we've got that, then we move to the next, and next, and the next. You know, and I mean, there is floating around things like a kava declaration, which would hurt things enormously commercially. Now,
Peter, we're jumping around the topic. Can we come back?
I always jump around, but
yeah, I know. You need to take some of your own cover to calm down a little bit. I want to give Faye a chance to respond, and then there are some questions from the panel here, and also a question from Peter or from Fiji. But Faye, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, no, thanks, Pakilau. I respect Peter's perspective. Unfortunately, you know, the powers that be and the governments that represent us and that work on our behalf, the regulators that we have, we are pushing in that direction. You know, I acknowledge Peter's perspective, and you know, in an ideal world. In an ideal world with an ideal situation, you know, where we have everything in line, we would have done what Peter has said. Sure. We would have first got the legislation and then got into the GIs and all this stuff. But unfortunately,
we're not there.
The way things work is that everything comes in a jumbled form, and you need to make sense out of what is in front of you.
It is what it is.
And we know that there is a huge potential for kava. But we also know that if we don't do anything and regulate that and provide a legal framework for it, we will not benefit from kava, and the benefit will go somewhere else. And that's why we need to then protect. We need to make sure that we provide that legal framework and also protect the word and protect the culture and the tradition that goes with the consumption of kava. We need to do that, because otherwise we will push the commercialization of kava to the detriment of the culture and the tradition of kava in our region. And that is where we need regulators, we need policymakers, and not just the commercial perspective. We need to have both. Right? Okay. And this is where, Peter's perspective is that this is where we need to have that legal framework. Right? That's what I'm pushing for. Okay.
I hear you loud and clear. And before we go to Peter,
yeah.
You go, Faye.
No, I was just saying, Pakilau, that I'm just saying that. See, ideally, I agree with Peter. We should have had the framework and the legal framework first, and then that. But it doesn't happen that way, right? We have a situation that we need to forge ahead. There is a plan that by 2027 we should have something in place. We should have the legal frameworks, and we should have that discussion about GIs. right? We should have that application all sorted, right?
Yeah.
That's where we want to be at, right? And it's going to take us that long.
Okay.
It's going to take us that long. And I would disagree with Peter with regards to the declaration. And maybe Peter needs to go and do a little bit more homework with regards to how you access WIPO and how you get acknowledgement from WIPO and the intellectual property organization. But that's a discussion, you know. I mean, I can provide some information to Peter, and then maybe we can sit down around the tanoa, and then I can give him a few hints as to what he should be doing with regard.
There is a way we drink kava, which is very simple. Water, tanoa, sit in a circle, talanoa, that's kava. Now, we are seeing different practices happening in America, particularly in some of the kava bars. And I'm not criticizing what they're doing, because, you know, when you get your kava, you bought it, it's yours. You can do what you like with it. But is it kava? I don't know. So I want to ask Peter, what are your views, Peter, when people mixing kava with milk or all sorts of other things, and even this thing called kratom? I hear it's an addictive plant that has some dangerous aspects to it. I don't know. I've never seen it, or even, you know, I don't know a lot about it, but I do hear that it's very, very harmful. Peter, what are your views? And then I'll come to Faye.
Okay. When it comes to the cultural thing, right? And look. I still go back to the other point of Faye's. He says 2027. If I was in charge, those laws would go through in those countries in 3 months. If there was a will, they're the important ones. Stop that. That's the first thing to do. Stop that. If he's going to take 2027 to do his silly JIs and have 150 meetings in different countries, so be it. But that's craziness. You do the legislation, which is quite an easy thing to do. You know, and of course it's in everybody's interest to put that legislation in. And I do not want planted in Costa Rica and Indonesia and anywhere else in the world. No way. We all want it to stay in the Pacific. Okay, going to the cultural thing. Now, you guys, and I think this is where we have to sort of accept certain things. You guys sit on mats, right? I don't know how you stand up because you're so big, but you sit on mats, right?
Now, I am losing weight.
but okay, we, as far as I'm concerned, we're the only ones who drink kava culturally properly. We drink green kava. Okay, we're not the only country. I think Ponape does. They strain this through what we call barao skin. But look, green kava in Tana is still chewed by people. It's still chewed. It's spat on leaves and then it's made. And in where I come from, we use a coal stone and we grind it, right? And so it's made like that. And it's green kava out of the garden that day. Now, you guys grind it. And I think I just take on board what I'm saying, and I'm not trying to sort of put what I am, but I'm not. But on you. But you know, you dry kava. Now that's not our tradition. We don't dry the kava. We do for sale for export, but for drinking we never dry it. But you dry kava, and then you grind it in a Chinese grinder, and then you call it traditional. Now, come on. Is that tradition? I don't think so. So, you know, we have to be a little bit careful when we talk about these cultural things. It's all very well saying, oh, we're drinking kava in the traditional way, but, you know, surely it should be prepared in the traditional way. Well, a Chinese grinder is not traditional, I'm afraid. And so it's just a point. Look, I know we can't. Look, like, I know it's just a point that, you know, it's a silly little point, but it's a point which should be made that, you know, that tradition has all these different ways, and there are different ways how different people do kava. You know, look, in Fiji, they really do. One of the comments from one of the people in Fiji who said to me, well, you know, we don't really follow tradition. We mix it up in a bucket, you know, in a plastic bucket, and then we're sitting around and we're doing that. So, you know, I mean, but as far as I'm concerned, in Vanuatu anyway, tradition will always remain. I know I talked to some people today from Tana, some other people, it'll always remain. And I hope it does always remain. And I do believe it will, because, you know, it will. But when kava gets exported, I think it belongs to the other person. I personally, this is personal, I don't really agree with it being mixed with other products, particularly. But what we have to take into consideration is that the kava market has been driven by the extract market. It's made it short and it's pushed up prices for kava farmers. And our most important commodity in the kava industry is the kava farmer. They're the backbone. They're the major people. And they're the poor people. Let them have a good livelihood. They're getting now top prices. And if we knock out some of those markets by saying, oh, we want to do this and we want to do that, it's not going to change what's happening traditionally in the South Pacific. So we shouldn't knock them out, and we should allow them to happen so that our kava farmers can prosper, and kava does prosper. Just on that, one little point on that, I said that it wasn't drunk before in the towns in Vanuatu. And people they got their pay, they used all that pay sometimes and drank red wine, and then there was terrible domestic violence. There were bad car crashes and all the rest of it. Since kava has arrived on the scene and it's now drunk in both of the major towns, the amount of domestic violence has dropped dramatically. The amount of car accidents dropped dramatically. Kava's a great thing, and it really does suit people in the Pacific, and I think people everywhere, in fact. So it's something which should be, and I think we should encourage, even if our exports do drop, it should still be encouraged that people drink it, because I think it makes people mentally, I can't describe the word, but calm. Yeah. And
Peter, you had a question for Peter and Faye? Do you want to jump in here?
Whether we like it or not, the demand for kava in the global world, it will continue to increase. And for us as small Pacific Island nation, our momentum will be more stronger if we combine all together. For example, we have now customers from the US demanding around 1 to 5 tons a month. Then with the shortage of kava, whether it goes to kava bar, and whatever they do with the kava bar and all, as long as the farmers have a fair return and everybody win in the supply chain, that's very important. The culture aspect will always be there. And I also concur with Peter. We used to tell our customer in the US when we're sitting down and share the cultural aspect, and they're trying to understand more about the culture. And we keep telling them in Fiji we are probably the one most kava abusers. We drink in the bucket, in the bottle, we drink in the stadium, we drink it on the street and everywhere. But that doesn't stopping us from the culture aspect of it. And when we have the tano and have our talanoa. But the future is, whether we like it or not, kava will be just like coffee. It's going to be it's going to be a huge demand. It's either we in the game or we out of the game. The legislation part is interesting. Probably the other Pacific. I was sitting in the 1 week workshop with the GIS gang, talking about all these indicators and all. But there was nothing in that conversation. What will be the benefit going down to the farmer?
That's a very fair observation, and appreciate your contribution to the Talanoa, Peter from Fiji. And I just want to give opportunity to Faye for response, and then we'll go to Peter, and then I'll open it up to the panel for some comments and questions from here. Faye, do you have a response?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Peter, for that comment. We are continuously in discussion with WIPO with regards to the way forward, and we acknowledge full well that the way kava is being drank and the way kava is being consumed is evolving, is evolving. But that does not take away the importance of what we consider as cultural. And what we consider as traditional way that we drink and we consume kava. I just maybe want to open up one particular aspect here is that when we put kava into extracts and we supply a market that drinks kava on an individual basis. One sees that one thinks that kava is the only solution, right? That if you drink the kava, your anxiety and your stress levels will go down, and that you will, and that's the benefit of kava. But what we are also finding out here is that research is beginning to tell us that that's not the only thing. That you need to drink it in an environment that is conducive to sharing, that is conducive to talanoa, that is conducive, and that is where culture and tradition begin to merge with regards to the market. And so what we're increasingly saying is that it's not just about the kava, it's also about how you drink the kava and where you drink the kava in. That makes kava what it is, right? So we talk about kava as being distressing and it's an anti-anxiety solution, but that's not all of it. That's not all of it, right? So this is another discussion that we are also looking into at this point in time.
Okay, fair point.
With regards to what's being said, go ahead, Pakilau.
You can say.
No, I'm just saying that, when we do talk to the farmers, it's interesting that, of course, the farmers will not know about GIs. That's a given. That's not their problem. That's not their problem. And for us, it's a matter of seeing what the solutions are, seeing what the options are, and taking a decision and then moving in that direction. If we are wrong, we are wrong.
Yeah.
But right now, this is where we are, and the processes are underway so that we have an opportunity to provide a framework that we can all work together in. And this is, I come back again to Peter's point about the kava declaration. This is an opportunity for us to all say the same things with regards to kava. And that's the kava declaration.
Okay.
So right now, if we were going to do this, everybody will pull in that direction. Fiji will pull, Vanuatu will pull, Tonga will pull.
Yeah.
And then what's going to be the benefit to us all at the end? Right?
Yeah.
Again, we come back, and it's the farmer that will suffer. What I'm saying here is that let's be careful. Let's not use the word and the name and the reference to the farmer in vain. Let's make sure that when we say these things, we mean it. There is benefit that goes to the farmer. But the farmer is also, when the farmer drinks the kava, the farmer is very clear about the kava. We all sit down, we drink the kava in the traditional manner. There's no two if or buts about it. The way it's drank in Fiji, in the rural, in the highlands, that's the way we drink it. What we do in Suva, that's not how we consume. That's an urban way of consuming kava. But it doesn't take away the traditional and cultural importance of kava. Yeah. And I find it interesting that Peter just refers to the cultural and traditional importance of kava to how you sit down and consume kava. Kava is more than that, brother. Kava is your identity. Yeah. That's who you are. No wonder we've got this issue, because we only refer to kava as the way we drink it. We all have, and many of us grow kava as well. We may not grow it on an industrial basis, but we grow kava. We know how to grow kava, right? And number two is that if we are to leave the market solely to the commercial interests, what we will see happen is that this market will not be towards the benefit of the farmers. What we will do is that we will maximize returns for the middleman. And that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is to make sure that we have a framework that truly benefits the farmer. Yeah. And let's not kid ourselves that sometimes, people have made their lives around kava. People have made them, people have become rich around kava. But you see the farmers that have been providing for them all the years, how many years down the line, the farmer still remains the farmer.
Yeah.
The farmer still struggles on a regular basis to make ends meet. And despite the fact that the kava now is running at $150 in Tonga,
yeah,
you know, we still see that people are still struggling on the ground. So the question for us is, what else or what more can we do to maximize the return for the farmer?
Yeah.
Cut the middleman out. Yeah, that might be an option. You know, but I think each country has its own struggles and it has its own challenges. But there's nothing better than to be working together, coming up and finding commonalities in the problems that we have, and looking for solutions together. Because if we don't do that, we will cut each other's throats with regards to kava. And that's the way we're going to go. If we don't have a system and a framework, and if we're not talking to each other with regards to kava. Otherwise, you leave it to them, you leave it to the businessman. It will not happen. It will not happen.
Marapito Faye, thank you, Faye, for that. And I just want to go back to Peter and also summarize our conversation and close this part of the podcast. Are you there, Peter?
Final thoughts are, final thoughts are the people in the meetings are not kava farmers. They're not kava. None of them have anything to do with the kava industry. They're minor little backyard kava farmers. We're talking about the kava farmers. I'm talking about the ones who are living off kava, right? They're the ones we're concerned about. Now, they can pretend they're concerned about it, but they're pretending. They're all on high salaries, all academics. They know nothing about kava. They're not at the coalface. We're at the coalface. And it needs to be that the people who are at the coalface, who know the farmers, we should be the ones who are making policy. Now, when it comes to tradition, I'm all with Faye, right? When it comes to long-term protecting of kava, all with Faye, right? But there's ways about it. If we do certain things, we're going to then diminish the price of kava for the kava farmers, because we're going to lose, like Pedro said, those overseas markets. We will lose them because we're telling them you can only do it in this way and that way. It will not be good for the kava farmers. So in fact, it is the kava farmer who's going to get hurt. We need to be thinking about the kava farmer. I mean, they're only swinging to the kava farmer now because I've brought it up so much, right? As far as I'm concerned. But the people in these meetings, it should be we should be consulted with. Now it's all government and academics. They don't know anything about kava, right? And culturally, yes, we're all together. We'll try to get it all together. We have different ways of drinking kava. That's fine. And I think we can come on to common ground on that. That's not a problem. But, you know, we really got to be thinking about, it'll always stay kava. It will not be lost. And it's not going to be lost. Look, we're the only country also where we have a minimum price. Now, the other countries need to have a minimum price. We had the minimum price. Now it's gone above that. But, you know, minimum prices, we haven't had a lot of middlemen in here. I mean, it's so regulation, we've got a Kava Act, and so maybe that could be the reason. But anyway, we can, I would like us to find common ground, like Faye said, to all work together. You're sick and tired of me now, Faye.
That is a fantastic way to end our this part of the podcast by your statement, whereby you said you want to find a way to work together. I like that. Good. And it's a good thing that you acknowledge that we may have our differences. You drink kava standing up, and you drink it raw, and you don't have a talanoa. We drink it sitting down with water, pounded or whatever, and we talanoa. That's our way. We're not disputing that, but that's kava. That was the original kava that we had in Tonga. And so to summarize, I think there is a middle ground here. And I think Faye, and between Faye and yourself, Peter, there is a way that we can make this thing work for everybody, so that the farmers, the entrepreneurs, even the middlemen, they can do what they do and grow the industry and, you know, market kava to the world. What we need to also do is to make sure that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I take it that we're never gonna lose the kava culture. However, we do need to be careful, because there are harmful elements creeping in, like Creighton, for instance, and other things. But again, Can I just take this opportunity on behalf of the Inasi Global Cover Club and our Koko X podcast to thank our two guests, the wonderful Feiloakitau Kaho Tevi. Thank you, sir, for joining us in this cover podcast. Mr. Peter Colmar over in Vanuatu, thank you, sir, for joining us. And also, Peter, we understand that some of these conversations can be controversial, but we are here as brothers in arms. We're all here for cover. Regardless of whether you're on that extreme or that extreme, we understand that this is a wonderful product. And I work in mental health and addiction. I've seen so many people come off drugs, come off alcohol, and now are drinking kava, which is far better for them, and they've weaned off their addiction to other harmful, more harmful drugs. So let's try and promote kava as a product that can change lives, because it has already. And so I just want to acknowledge also our audience, acknowledge our sponsors, Four Shells. Thank you so much to our Doa and everyone here tonight. We will now close this part of the podcast and have our whaikava and our talanoa to discuss the key issues that were raised tonight. But again, just to thank my guests and thank you for your time. Tua o whaatu, malo apito.